Great. So thank you very much, Emma, for your time and joining us today. It's such a pleasure having you on the call.
Hi, Bushra, and hi, everyone. So thank you very much for the invitation, although as you mentioned, I work with Jusoor. And yeah, just to let you know, so this webinar will be in English. If there is something unclear at any point, you can feel free to ask, but we're gonna use English as a primary language for this webinar. I'm very happy to be here today. Before starting the presentation about how to improve or enhance a scholarship or university application, I'd just like to say a couple of words about myself. So as Bushra mentioned, my name is Emma Redondo. I'd like to start with my academic background very briefly because this is the topic today. So I hold a bachelor degree in History and Arabic Studies from a university based in France called Sorbonne University. And I also hold a master's degree in Arts and Heritage from Maastricht University, which is located in the Netherlands. And I have been working for the past 4 years in Jordan for a social enterprise. And at the same time, I was living in Jordan and working for this enterprise. Aside from my work, I was also able to volunteer to help some students based in Jordan, but also in other countries with their university and scholarship applications. And this is how I joined Jusoor, first of all, as an academic mentor and mentoring coordinator, after which I got the chance to join Jusoor officially since a month, as Bushra mentioned, as a mentoring and aftercare project manager. So this is more about me and about my background. Maybe some of you might already know me, or perhaps we had some exchange per email or interviews. So let me just share my screen with you. We'll start the presentation. So first of all, I really hope that this content will be informative for you. It might be repetitive or redundant for some of you. I am also aware of that. Some information are pretty basic, but some of them are maybe more advanced. It really depends also where you are at the moment. This content had been, I would say, created based on the most common mistakes I've seen in some applications, university or scholarship applications. And this is why I thought like, yeah, I would take this as a baseline for this content. So before going into the heart, let's say, of the topic, which is how to enhance and improve your scholarship or university application, I like to talk first about the mindset to adopt. Because at Jusoor, we see a lot of people who are keen to get scholarship and enter great university, which is obviously great. And we genuinely encourage you to achieve and work toward achieving your academic goals. Without any doubt, this is what we wish you. However, we'd like to talk first about the mindset in order for you to succeed. The first thing is applying for the right reasons. What does it mean? It means that we're totally aware that the majority of you live in a country or in an area which is suffering from several factors. However, you have to make sure that if you're eager to leave your country, to go to another country, living abroad, this also has to be for the right reasons, and you have to be able. You have to be keen, eager, and willing to pursue your study, bachelor, master, or PhD degree. Why this is really important? The first reason is because this will motivate you throughout the whole process, which takes a lot of time and efforts. And second of all, which when you will get there, if you get a university acceptance and scholarship acceptance, it will not be easy. It will not be easy. So you have to be eager to continue your study. This has to be your motor. So that's the first thing. Be eager to apply for the right reasons. The second factor is to take into consideration that scholarship. So here I wrote a full-time job. it was maybe a bit too much for me. It's not a full-time job, but at least a part-time job, I would say. Again, it takes a lot of time and effort, so you have to be ready to put in all this time and effort into your applications, and you have to be aware of this. This is normal. It takes a lot of your time. This is totally fine, and this is normal. The third aspect, be ready to question yourself and your submitted application. And this goes also with the fourth point, to keep in mind that you're competing with a lot of different applicants. You have to be ready to question yourself and your application. Why? Because you will be competing with so many people and you will be applying to different countries. For instance, you're applying to the US. You have to be aware that the quality of your application in Syria will not be considered as the same in the US. So it's really important for you to be able to question yourself in terms of your capacities, your skills, and so on. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be confident. You have to be confident, but at the same time, it's really important for you to always question the quality of your work and your skills in order to know how to develop them and go further. Paying attention to detail is another very important point. I actually don't like to say that it's important to pay attention to detail, because details are not the detail in application. Details are, I would say, the core body of your application. Again, you're competing with so many people. Your reader, the person who will assess your application, has to make sure that you're paying attention to every single point, because your application will reflect your person. So the layout of your CV, a spelling mistake, those are not details. Those are really parts, the main part of your application. Last point, making sure to be organized, and ideally speaking, working with an action plan or a very precise timeline so that you can track all the deadlines, all the requirements, all the needed documents that have to be submitted, all the overlaps between the application, the university application, and the scholarship application, because sometimes those are different deadlines and there are different documents to be provided. So this isn't impossible, obviously, to have the right mindset, but it's really important, first of all, before starting to go into the scholarship and university admission process, thinking, hey, am I ready? Do I have a right mindset? So that you don't also waste your time and you're able to do your best when working on your applications. So I hope this is clear. So let's start a bit with how to target the right university and scholarship for you. First point, just search, and search. You will have to research for scholarship, for opportunities. There are some years some are open, other year they're not. So it's really important for you to find the scholarship that would fit your subject, your level, if it's bachelor, master degree, and so on. So conduct a lot of research at the beginning. Then read very carefully about the eligibility criteria, because it would be really a shame, and we saw this, I personally saw this, for you to start working on an application and you realize that you're just not meeting the eligibility criteria. Just as an example, for instance, there is this master degree, this master course you're very interested in applying, but then it requires you, for instance, to have a bachelor degree from the same area, same subject, but you don't have this bachelor degree. You have a different bachelor degree, but you have some years of experience. So perhaps you don't meet the eligibility criteria. So this is why it's very important before to read carefully, and don't hesitate to email university to ask them, because sometimes, so usually it's stated in a very clear way, but they might have exception, and especially in the Syrian context. In your case, I really encourage you to email universities, because we know that the situation in Syria is quite different, especially for the language requirements sometimes. because you're in Syria, I know that you don't have access to any British consul in the country. You have to go, for instance, to Jordan and Lebanon. So sometimes it's also worth emailing university and asking them, hey, for instance, can I provide you with the Duolingo test? Or this is also a great way for the professors or the people in charge of the program to get to know you and having a first contact and exchange. Obviously, when you do that, your emails have to be written in a good way, without any making mistakes and so on. Which leads us to checking the language requirements. I will put a particular emphasis on this point, and I'll tell you right after a funny story that happened to me personally about the English requirements and the language requirements in general. Please make sure that when you look at a course you really like, check at the English requirements and try to think in a very realistic way. For instance, if your level is B2, target university that don't require more than 6.5 at IELTS. 7 is for people who are C1. I don't want to say it's impossible to reach 7. No, it's just that if you're planning to take your IELTS within a couple of months, you have to know your level. Obviously, you will be working on the methodology for the test and you will be improving, but you will not be able to improve drastically if, for instance, you're not able to conduct an interview in English. Then you're not B2. You really have to take this into consideration. And why am I saying this? I met people who were awarded the Achieving Scholarship, for instance, which is great and prestigious, but who just couldn't make it into the UK, and they couldn't take the award because simply they applied to university courses that required them to have quite high scores in English, and they just couldn't meet the language requirements. So this can be a deal breaker, and it's really important to assess your level in English. And now I'll just tell you a funny fact that I took 3 times the IELTS because I was not getting one of the sub scores. So usually for the language requirements, you have what we call the overall scores at the IELTS or TOEFL. This is the same concept, although it's a different rating system. And, I will just tell you the story. So basically, I studied my bachelor degree, as I mentioned at the beginning, in France, and I was very keen to pursue my master degree, my postgraduate studies in the Netherlands. I was so excited. I spot 2 universities, 2 courses, one in Maastricht and one in Rotterdam. So I saw Rotterdam I needed to get a 7 at the IELTS. I thought, no, I don't have the level, especially back in time, my English was really was weaker than today. So I thought, no, 7 will be too hard for me. But 6.5, I think I can do that, 6.5. I didn't really pay attention that I also needed to get 6.5 at the writing task. So what happened is that I wasn't used to write any academic or professional content in English, not at all. So I went to the British consul to do, I was lucky by this time because I was this kind of like assessments, and they tell you approximately your level. And they told me, oh, your writing level is like no more than B1. And I was, oh my God, I'm gonna do that. I had to work so hard and I had to talk 3 times the IELTS because each time I was getting this 6.5, I just couldn't get the sub score. And eventually the 3rd time, 3 days before the deadline to submit my English test, I managed to get the 6.5 as a sub score. I know I'm spending some time on this part, but because I really want to highlight this point, please be realistic when it comes to the language requirements. Thank you.
It's a very great point, actually, Emma, and I don't think that it was mentioned before during our webinars. So for the people who don't know what what a sub-score is. So your overall score is the median or mean of your sub-scores. So you have writing, reading, speaking, and listening. They all have their individual scores. And then they take the mean of these sub-scores and provide you with your full score. So most of the universities, they tell you, okay, you need to get like 6.5, but you also need to get 6.5 in each sub-score. So even if you got 6.5, your overall, maybe you've got like 7 in reading, but 5.5 in writing, still you didn't meet the criteria. So this is a very important point. Thank you for mentioning it, Emma, because I don't think that we mentioned it before, to pay attention to the nitty-gritty of the details of these scholarships. Sometimes there are some hidden stuff that we just like overlook and we don't pay attention to. And then we realize, oh, so that's why we weren't accepted to a specific program, because we didn't actually meet the criteria, although that we thought we did. Thank
exactly.
you. Personal
yeah, this is from my personal stories, and I saw so many people. Unfortunately, it happened to many people. So yeah, I thought it was important to highlight this. So let's move to something else now. Okay, I go very quickly for CV writing. I didn't want to spend too much time on CV writing, but I just have a slide just as a reminder. Make sure to check the different types of layouts. If you're applying to the UK, to the US, to France, sometimes it's a different format, and it's always really good to comply with the format to the country you're applying to. It also means you know about how the country functions. Make sure, obviously, to have no spelling mistakes, and also make sure to adapt to the language in the country in terms of spelling. For instance, American and British English. You're applying to a Fulbright scholarships. Write your CV in an American way. For instance, don't put an S at organize, put with a Z. If you're applying for Chevening, write program with double M and E. These are details, not details. It's really important. And usually I know that some scholarships in their guidelines, they also mention this. And again, a detail that is not a detail. Also a very recurring, I wouldn't say a mistake, but at least an issue. Many people who apply for scholarship university, this also worth for jobs, have CD that makes like 3-4 pages. Always go for 1-2 page CVs, but again, it depends on the country. So always look at the country. How does the country function? And obviously, if it's a PhD application, for instance, it means that you will have to list your articles, research. In that case, it can be more than 2 pages. So there are always exceptions, but it's really important that you are fully aware of the formats and how does the country work when it comes to CV writing or resume writing if you're in the US. And last point, select the information to highlight and use keywords. Here again, I don't want to go too much in details, but I have read so many and reviewed so many CVs that are not highlighting the main information. If you're applying for, I don't know, a master's degree in humanitarian and NGO studies, for instance, go for keywords, go for the master course, check the name of the courses, insert the name of the courses in your CV. Like try to match your professional experience. If you have related experience, use keywords. But I think we can have a whole webinar about keywords and CV and cover letter writing. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'll rather move directly to the content of the cover letter and an essay, and I have some examples right after this. So let's go into the heart of the scholarship application, the cover letter and essay writing. So each of the words and sentence you use in your cover letter and essay writing should be here for a reason. There is a reason. There is a specific structure, and we go for it through the structure right after. Give concrete examples and facts and be accurate. Why? Because it shows your reader that you know what you're talking about, and it makes your application unique. If you don't give any examples, if you don't give facts, if you don't give dates, you're just speaking in a very general way. Yeah, I want to enroll in this master degree because I want to make Syria great again, for instance. Anyone can say this. There is nothing personal. It's boring for your reader. So you have to make sure to give examples, tangible and accurate facts in your application. Very important, work on your essays gradually and take always some distance. Work on it throughout several days, weeks, or months, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. So know that I give you a bit some content like, yeah, you should get facts, examples. I will give you no concrete examples on how to structure your essays. Again, it's a general structure. It works for many of the contents you might have to write. But again, there is no one rules, but this approach usually works for many types of content. So maybe some of you have heard about the STAR approach: situation, task, action, results. I was using it myself before, but I knew it's under another name. When I learned about the STAR approach, I was at the university. Actually, I think last year of high school. And the STAR approach is especially used for chevening essays. They usually advise you to use the STAR approach, but it actually can be used in a cover letter. And I studied history to talk in my essays of history. I was using the STAR approach. So let's see what is the STAR approach and an example of structure. Here I talk an example of someone I supported with his applications. Obviously, I got his approval to show you a bit what is like a proper structure for a paragraph. So the first yellow sentence in September, the first sentence highlighted in yellow. In September 2017, I joined the corporate social responsibility division of a company located in Dubai. This gives you the situation. I call it the context. I didn't know the STAR approach. I call it context. It gives you a date in September 2017. It gives you the name of a company, the corporate social responsibility division of a company. Here you even can say the name, the exact name of the company. It's even preferable, located in Dubai, and it gives you a concrete location. Great, it gives you tangible information. Then I was responsible for designing and implementing their programs in Jordan, aiming to build the capacity of Arab youth to become influential figures in their communities. Here is the task. I call it explanation. You explain what you were doing at this moment in this position. It's more a general description. So here he explained, he was responsible for designing and implementing programs. Then you go, you narrow it down. You go into, I call it the example. For the STAR approach, they call it the action. As an example, and here use the word as an example, I mentor 230 youth who developed 75 projects tackling issues affecting them, after which I conducted a fundraising campaign evolving around the projects. He gave numbers, 130 youth who developed 75 projects tackling issues. So he gave here again a tangible example. And then the results. This experience was a turning point. It equipped me with solid skills to pilot projects on a national level while endorsing major responsibilities. Here is the results. He wanted to show, perhaps in this example, he wanted to show about his leading project management skills. But it depends here, the last sentence, it really depends on obviously on your essays questions. If you want to show the impact on the youth, it could be as a result, I don't know how many youth became influential leaders by doing 1, 2, 3. It can be also a result. So this is the example of the STAR approach. I really believe that this is a great baseline. Again, you can build on this. This is not something that you will be maybe always using, but I think that while writing a lot of type of cover letter, essays for your scholarship applications, again, I think this is a great baseline. And I hope that the way here I showed you the sentence was informative for you. As you can see, every single sentence in this example, every single word was here for a reason. Like there is nothing that was not useful in this content. All right, and also it avoids you to be redundant and to repeat yourself and to make it like boring and not structured. For the STAR approach, I just want to go through something that you might think like, come on, we learned this at school, but trust me, it's something I've seen so many times in applications. So I just like to go through it for a couple of minutes, is answering the questions. This might sound stupid, answering a questions, come on. But it's just so important to understand the question and to read carefully, to read it and to research the words and the terms. I'll give you an example. Here I have two examples, one for the Side Foundation Scholarship and the other one for the Achieving Scholarship. The first question, give an example of a real situation from your employment, education, or your voluntary work in which you have demonstrated your leadership skills. Okay, I read application here that didn't provide one example, but two examples. Here, they want one example. Many people, for this question, wrote two examples. Leadership skills. People might think, oh, leadership means I'm the boss and I'm leading others and they are behind me. Leadership has so many different meanings, so many different definitions. So research the terms, the terminology, understand, have your own interpretation. What does leadership means? And then you can start writing your answer, and maybe by using the STAR approach. Another question, and I saw again, the second question here, many people also didn't answer well. Again, I'm not Achieving panelist or Side Foundation panelist. I should have put this in a disclaimer, but the application I read were not answering the questions. Achieving is looking for individuals who have a clear post-study career plan. Please outline your immediate plans upon returning home and your longer-term career goals. You might wish to consider how this relates to what the UK government is doing in your country. So here, outline your immediate plans upon returning, meaning that you will have your first part about you saying, hey, after returning from Achieving, I'll do this. And then your longer term career plan. So maybe after like 5 years or 10 years. So many people here, for instance, they're just talking about the longer term career goals. They're not talking about their immediate plans. So make sure that when you write, for instance, the answer to this essay, at least you have the answers for these two components. Then the third component, what the UK government is doing in your country. It's really rare. I mean, again, I haven't reviewed like 1,000 Achieving applications, but in all the successful applications, people are talking about what the FCDO does. So the FCDO is the Foreign and Commonwealth. I don't have the exact terminology, but it's what the UK government basically is doing in your country. Relates what you're saying to what the government does. And a lot of people omit this part. So meaning that the people didn't read the question. And again, this might sound very basic, but this is sometimes the essence of the problem. And you might spend hours and weeks on answering the questions, but you're just not answering right. So one of my advice will be here, always keep the question in front of you. And each time when you read and review your essay, read the question first, then read your essay and think, am I answering the questions? Because perhaps you have great content about achievements, but you're just not answering the questions. And second tips, as I told you before, research the words and terminology to fully understand each term, and perhaps sometime having your own reflection to have like a deeper interpretation also I think that sometimes your reader also expects you to go sometime further and defining the terms. So this was for the cover letter and essay writing. Now I'll go, this is, I think, almost the last part, the reference letters. So the reference letters are mainly 99% in most of the case for scholarships, they're being required, not always for universities. Usually they are also for university applications, but at least for scholarship applications, you will be required to provide reference letter. So step one, just you have to choose and contact your referees. First of all, you have to read very carefully the reference guideline. So usually scholarship, they would provide you with a reference guideline. They will explain you what do they expect from your referees, who should be your referee, and what are they expected to comment. Sometimes they have even more details about on what they want you to comment. It's not always the case, but it happens. So you have to make sure to pick the right referees, people who appreciate you, who know your work, and are relevant to your application. What does it mean to be relevant to your applications? If you're planning to pursue a study in mechanical engineering, for instance, in a master's degree in Canada, you're required to submit one academic reference. So make sure to pick a professor that's taught you about what you want to study in your master. Make sure to make it very pertinent. Make sure to relate on your future course. It's something very important. And make sure that your referee is able to comment on your current or very recent work. If you pick a referee that can comment on your work, met you 5 years ago and you worked with this person 5 years ago, unless it was it's very relevant and it was exceptional and there is something very special, I'm not sure that I would advise to take someone who met you 5 years ago to comment on your work. It's always preferable to pick people who can comment on your current or recent work. So no, because right now for the reference letter, I told you, let's say information you might already know about it. You would say, yeah, it's quite basic, just reading the guideline and how to pick our referees. So no, we'll go into the Syrian context. So let's be realistic. In many cases, and in majority of the cases, people you will ask for a reference letter, especially in Syria, they will maybe not know what is a reference letter. They will not perhaps know how to write a reference letter, and especially they might not know how to write it in English. If your referee knows about all these points, then you're lucky. This is great. Your referee can go ahead and write a reference letter. But if this is not the case, then here are my advice. Your first option will be for you to write a structure for your referees, the points you would like him or her to talk about, and while making sure that you're also sticking to the guideline. So maybe you can provide with bullet points to your referees. This is one of the options. The second option, if your referee is totally unable to write the letter, you can agree, you can meet with him or meet with your referee, agree with him or her, like, hey, what about like these main points to comment on me, so that you can draft something so that your referee can approve the content, because obviously it has to come from him or her. So the person has to approve what you're writing down. So most likely, unfortunately, I believe that many of you will be facing this issue with reference letters, and you might have to sometimes write yourself the reference letter because your referees might not really know how to write the reference letter. That being said, I really highly advise your reference letter is ready to have someone you trust to review it. So it can be your academic mentor for the ones who are part of the academic mentoring program with Jusoor. I would advise you to send it to your mentor and asking him or her, hey, do you think you can just review to check the spelling mistakes and making sure that the content is fully relevant, although you should be checking this before. You have to make sure the content is relevant. Or perhaps you have a friend who's studying currently in the US at a university, and she or he has a really great level in English. Maybe this person can also review your letter. That being said, you really have to make sure to go into this reference process ahead of time, because you depend here on several people and you might have several rounds. So I would even advise you, like, the sooner the better for the reference letter, so that you make sure that you're not too tight, because sometimes you have to follow up with your referee, then you write a first draft and the person doesn't approve, you have to write a second draft, then you want to check with your mentor if he or she can review, but maybe he or she will be busy, and so on. So this is for the reference letters. This is not impossible, but you really have to make sure here that you process with that ahead of time. I'll be done very soon, so that I know we want maybe to proceed to question. It's just it's my last slide about proofreading and feedback, because this is also very, very important parts while applying to universities and scholarships. It's really important that you always self-review yourself, as I mentioned. Always read the question again, the essays, then modify accordingly and according to your thoughts until you're satisfied. When you're satisfied, then you can ask someone to proofread your essay, and be very clear with your proofreader. Do you want him or her to only review the content or the spelling and grammar, for instance? And make sure to pick the right proofreader. Make sure that the person, if you ask, do you want the input of someone for the content, make sure that this person has the capacities, and make sure that the person understands what the essays questions. If the person tells you, yeah, I just can review it, and doesn't ask you about the essays questions, it's a bit alarming. The person should be totally aware of the question of your essay and should understand the question if you ask your proofreader to review the content. And if it's about just, for instance, the English, then it's fine. You just want this person to review the spelling and the grammar and so on. I know it's sometimes a bit hard to find a proofreader, but this is why also we have our academic mentoring program. And this is also why it's really important for you to write your applications ahead of time, so that you have time to connect with a proofreader. Maybe you have your cousins, he lives in the US, and you would have 15 minutes to read your application just to correct some spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes in English. Just this, I think this is great to take, and this will be very helpful. And that being said, it's really important for you to submit your applications to your proofreader or your reviewer when, again, you're fully satisfied with it, because sometimes people, they don't have much time to allocate and you don't have that many cards to use. So you want to make sure like you're fully ready, so that after the person proofread your application, you can submit it directly, or perhaps making small edits. Again, myself, I had to proofread and review many applications, and sometimes it was, come on, you could have corrected this word. And I think it's not really also respectful for your proofreader, because he or she usually is not getting paid for that, obviously, because this person just wants you to succeed. So I think it's also nice for you to do this for your proofreader. Sometimes I got a bit pissed, I have to say, because I knew that the person didn't proofread him or herself. So this can also happen. I hope this was informative. I'm sorry if it was a bit long, but thank you all for your time. I'm so happy to take any questions, any thoughts you might have. And also here is my email address.
Thank you, Emma. This was really informative. And I think you've covered a lot of areas and little details to help students to improve the quality of their applications. So we have some questions that we received, and I would like to encourage everyone that would like to ask Emma, either type your question in the Q&A section, or you can raise your hand and I'll give you access to the mic if you'd like to ask Emma directly. Also, for people who are attending on the live stream on Facebook, please leave a comment and I will read out your question to Emma. So we have a question coming from Mais. Mais was asking about her references. So she's applying for universities this year, but she was wondering if it's okay that I use academic recommendation letters that was dated in 2020. So this was the first part of her question. Also, she's asking, at the department that she studied at, almost all of the professors who taught her, sorry, either left the country or left the institution. Some of them have an official email address to the institution that they are currently working at. And some of them, they have personal email addresses. Is that okay as long as I'm getting the recommendation on a headed letter paper?
So for the first, thank you, Max, for your question, first of all. Thank you for your interest, and it's great to know that you're in the process of applying to universities and scholarships as the first thing. So Max, for your first question, I would highly recommend you to... It's great to know that you're in the process of applying. Oh, I think it was the recording, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So for your first question, Mace, I would highly advise you to, if the content of the letter is still valid, it's no problem to keep the content, but you'll have to modify the date. It's really important that you change the date so that it's updated to 2021, and anyway, you will have also to put the day and month. So again, if the content is still valid, and it really relates to the scholarship, to the question, it's relevant. If there is no modifications to be made in the content, keep the content, but you have to update the letter, the dates, or ask your referees, or maybe you just can ask her or him for you just to do it. You know, I think it wouldn't be a problem. For the second question, so I'm not sure I understood. So most of the professors who were teaching at universities left the universities, but I'm not sure I understand at the end. You talked about like professional and personal email address. So what was the issue here?
So some of the professors who left the institution that she received her degree from are currently working in another institution, and they have work emails in the path of the other institution. So
I think this is totally okay. This is totally okay, Amaze. Just you have to make sure that you're, I mean, I'm saying this is totally okay, but usually this is okay. You just have to make sure that you refer explaining the letter that she or he was teaching you at your previous universities and the position and so on. Because anyway, usually when you ask, for instance, reference for work reference, your former boss might have changed maybe his or her position. So this is totally fine. I don't think this should be a problem as long as your professor mentions, contextualize the contents. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's it happens. People leave a workplace. Yeah. They may explain like, I was the professor of blah blah from this time to this time. So it's completely fine if they clarified where they taught you and what position they were in while you were their student. Also, we have a question coming from Abdelkader. He said, I studied civil engineering 2 years, then transferred to information technology. I didn't study civil engineering well. I think that he means that he wasn't really thorough in the first 2 years when he was studying civil engineering. But he had some good activities in the university there. So would that be good to ask my civil engineering professors, even though that I'm in IT now, to write my references? I asked him for a clarification what he's applying for, and apparently he's applying for software engineering.
So, okay, so Abdelkader is applying for software engineering, and what's he studied at university before?
So he did 2 years of civil engineering, and then he transferred to IT. But
Okay.
he was wondering if he can get the references from the civil engineering faculty professors.
Well, I think, again, if it depends also what type of master, what is the subject you would like to apply for. If you're applying for a master, this is more about software engineering, then I would advise you obviously to use a reference, I mean, a professor, ask a professor from your third year of university, because this would relate to your master subject. So here again, I don't think it makes sense if you study at the end something related to IT and you ask for an engineering letter. I think this doesn't make sense, but it really depends. Maybe your master degree is about another topic, and that you can then profess second year. This really, I'm not sure if you can tell us more to what's the course, what's the title of the master you're interested in, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Emma. So he said that he's studying software engineering. Maybe like if we know more about the title, but I have to say, and I don't know, I hear like an echo, so sorry for any technical issues. I would like to say if the professors that you're asking to provide a reference for you taught you something related to mathematics or something related to a transferable subject that you will be also needing in your upcoming master's degree, I think this is fine. Because you were their student and you studied this material, this subject with them. But if it's totally unrelatable, I wouldn't recommend having a related reference letter. And of course, like if you found any like anything in common between what you studied and what you will be studying, I encourage you to pay attention to these details and try to make sure that this subject is either required in your current degree, which is in IT, or in your
Bush, I think there is an issue.
Yeah, so
maybe it's mine. I'm sorry. I think it's mine. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure like if my internet was stable. Hopefully it was, and my answer was clear for you, Abdeladir. And I think that Emma also provided a very straightforward answer for you. Emma also Abdeladir asking another question. So he's saying, I still have 1 year to graduate and start applying for scholarship or apply for work. I do have a decent career experience with about 3 years inside Syria and remotely. How could that help to get positive feedback, whether it's for university or work? And what skills I can improve until it's time to apply?
Well, here again, I think the question is, in what field is this career experience you have? Because if it's in the field that relates to the master, the postgraduate course you want to apply for, then I think this is great. But here we would need, I think, more information, because if this is 3 years of experience that don't relate to your master course, then obviously it's great to show that you're being proactive and so on, but I'm not sure to what extent this is relevant for your applications. And what skills you can improve until it's time to apply. Well, I don't have all the details, but for sure, all the components and aspects that have been mentioned, it's really important to work on them, on your English and so on. But then if there is, I cannot give you a very accurate answer, because I'm not sure to which universities or scholarship or major you would like to apply for. But again, if your work experience relates to the program you're keen to apply for, then definitely it is worth commenting on that and perhaps asking also a reference letter if your university or scholarship accepts also a professional reference letter.
Awesome. I totally agree with you, Emma. Also, just like not to overwhelm and not to clutter your application, choose one or two of the most proud stuff that you did, either when you were a student or while you were working. If you have a very valuable story that you'd like to share in your essay, I'd suggest you choosing the references that they can elaborate on the stories that you had mentioned in your essay. I don't know what you think about this technique, Emma.
Yeah, I agree, Bushra, and this can be used also sometimes for personal statements if you want to on a point also. But I do agree that usually you need to see an overlap between your reference and what you're saying, because as you're saying, Bushra, they need to elaborate more for sure. Everything have to be related. You cannot ask someone, a referee, to ask you to write a letter and nothing relating to what the person is saying is mentioned in your application. This doesn't make sense. So I think, of course, yeah.
Awesome. So before taking the rest of the questions, I just would like to remind our audience that we have a feedback survey and we value your opinion. We usually try to design our upcoming webinars as per your feedback. So we highly appreciate you filling out the survey. And also for people who would like to have the materials and so on, usually I receive your emails within the survey, so I connect with you and I send you the material. It usually depends on my schedule. I try to be as fast as I can, but I appreciate you understanding that sometimes it gets very overwhelming. So be patient with me as well. We also have a question from Laura. She's asking, professors in Damascus universities don't have official emails, but they can write in a headed letter with the university logo, but with unofficial emails. Is it acceptable?
So Laura is my mentee. Bushra, so I'd like to get your input here because also it's part of the Syrian context. So if professors in Syria in a university, any of them have professional email address, well, then yeah, it has to be accepted. Like it has to. In this, if it's a special context, then I would say yes. What do you think, Bushra?
Yeah, so it's really it's very Syrian thing. So not all professors have actually like institutional emails. I've heard that in Damascus universities they started having it, but I totally agree. There's no official emails. But I would like to tell you, if the university or the scholarship that you're applying to makes it as a mandatory thing, I'd encourage you to email the admission office and explain it in a very well-structured email. 90% they will get back to you and they will tell you that we understand this situation, so it's completely fine. They can share their personal email and they will contact them through their personal email. And I also understand that some professors, they don't check their emails. So it might jeopardize the chances or the opportunities that students are trying to apply to. I would say pick a professor, one of like the most responsive professors that you developed a very great relationship with, and ask them to provide you with the reference letter. The headed one, the letter that has the logo with their signature, and also with their personal email, and try to seek another referee. So try to seek a referee. For example, if you were a mentor during our mentorship program, you also may use these connections that you're building through the community that we are establishing here in Kabila, and ask for references. Maybe you volunteered with someone who has a professional email. Most of the times it's completely okay when you explain the Syrian context to provide personal emails. I just would like to encourage you to ask, because I never applied to Chivnig or Said, so I don't know about it, but I know many Syrians that they were accepted to it. So I would say that it's acceptable when you explain the reason, and when you provide it in advance that, okay, I won't be able to actually provide a professional email address because of this and this and this, and they always understand this. And I think I've seen so many people that they've actually were able to get prestigious scholarships, and it was only because they explained it. So it's completely fine. And feel free to add a third or a second referee that has an institutional address if you developed a great relationship with that person, and that person can write a reference letter for you, either like indicating that you were dedicated, that you were committed, that you have the right passion. Feel free to expand it on other arenas, either through volunteer work or through networking.
Thank you, Bushra, for the very complete explanation. This is why, but you're right. And this is why also, as you mentioned, especially in the case of Syria, in the Syrian context, which is a very unique context, you have to email universities for reference letters and explaining that, hey, you don't have an official emails, but also, I mean, some professors don't have an official email. As I mentioned, for the English requirement, can you take a Duolingo test? Some universities would allow you, for instance, to take online English tests instead of IELTS or TOEFL. So it is worth elaborating on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really tricky, but like I encourage you to reach out. Like, people respond. Again, they might not respond right away, but they will respond at some point around like 7 to 10 working days, and this has worked for other people, so definitely would work for you.
And sorry, last thing, I know we have a lot of questions, but I know that Laura, you were asking this question. It's related to the reference letters for the Said Foundation Scholarship. And I know we're having Bushra a webinar, right, with them?
Yes. So on the 7th of October, we will be having a representative from Said Foundation, Hani and Rebecca. They will come and talk to us. The webinar will be bilingual, Arabic and English. Rebecca understands Arabic, but it would be easier for her to articulate in English, just like the case here today. I encourage you to actually come and prepare your questions. That would be a great question also for Hani and Rebecca. They can give you the right answer for Said Foundation Scholarship, so you can be on the safer side and have the full answer from their side as well. All right, so also we have a question from Haytham. Haytham is saying that, what are scholarships which don't need proof English language in Canada or any other country? I don't have IELTS or TOEFL to prove that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Haytham, for your question. So the majority of scholarships or university will require you to take an English test to show your comment of the language. So usually IELTS, TOEFL, but not many universities, as we just mentioned, accept the Duolingo test, which is way cheaper. Obviously, it's still a cost. I do understand this, but which is still way cheaper, and you can take it from home. You do have some universities who don't require you to take an English proficiency test, especially if you have sometime conducted all your education, all your educations in English. It happens it's quite rare, but I know some people who were accepted to universities who didn't require them to provide with an IELTS or TOEFL because they completed the bachelor degree fully in English. However, this is very tricky because I have a person in mind who didn't provide with the proof of IELTS and TOEFL, but she just didn't have the level to understand the course, and eventually it's a very sad story, but she failed because it was too hard for her, too demanding. What I mean here is that you can be great at English, and for some people it can go well without providing any IELTS and TOEFL. But usually for scholarship, this is really, I would say, really, really rare. Again, you have the possibility of Duolingo, and I'm not sure if your question it was related to the fact that IELTS and TOEFL are quite expensive. If it's the case, I think Duolingo is a great alternative. But in the other hand, unfortunately, IELTS and TOEFL are usually required, and they're so important because they're not here to bother you. They're also here to show you university that you will be able to complete the course in the language. But again, I do understand that it's very expensive, and I hope that in the future there will be other alternatives. We have still some alternatives, but more alternatives. And Bushra, if you would like to build on my answer, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Emma. It's not about being awarded the scholarship. It's about the journey is coming after being awarded that scholarship. However, I understand the struggle, like either monetary struggle with taking these kind of exams. It may require you to travel, and it's an added cost that sometimes with the currency exchange, it's really hard. Thank you, Laura, for sharing about opportunities from Syrian Youth Assembly to award Syrian students with waived fees for Duolingo. However, for people who think that their English proficiency is not very high, and they have it like a little bit tricky to get this kind of exam, I would recommend you to go for scholarships not in an English spoken country. First off, for England, you need the IELTS to grant the visa, so you can like cross this from your list. There are a few scholarships like the Hungarian government scholarship. You actually can provide the English proficiency test through the Higher Institute of Languages in Syria, and they accept that as an English proficiency proof. So you may take this exam. It costs some amount of money, but it's in Syrian currency, and it's valid for 2 years as well. Also, last week, I think we had a webinar. I think it was last week with Mohammed Kotayt, and he spoke about like Malaysia. He spoke about Turkey. He spoke about countries that you can actually apply for, and they're not very like high standard, prestigious, that acquire you to have like a very high level of English, and they may accept the Higher Institute of Languages examination. I would recommend you to take that exam. If you're communicating with the universities in Canada, you would say that currently I have this exam that proves that I'm in this specific level. I am willing to take the IELTS, but it's a matter of like either time, or I'm a little bit tight on money at this point. I will take the exam after I grant the admission or something. You can always talk to the university about it, but we provide you with ideas on how to go about it, how to apply for other scholarships that are not that demanding as the other prestigious scholarships. I hope this wasn't too long, and I hope it was helpful for you. Emma will also have a question from Mariam. Mariam saying that I was studying pharmacy at a certain university here in Lebanon, but now I have to quit the university because my scholarship has stopped due to the financial crisis in Lebanon, and I cannot afford to pay the tuition fees. Is it okay to mention this while applying to the other programs?
Well, it would be interesting to know more about your case, actually. So this scholarship was provided by the Lebanese government because it was to study in Lebanon, but was it provided by the, I mean, it would be great to know more about it, but
Mariam,
why not?
Sorry,
Yeah.
interrupt you. Mariam, if you'd like to have access to the mic, even if you'd like to ask your question in Arabic, it's completely fine. Okay, so it was provided by the university itself.
By the university itself in Lebanon. Okay, I see. Well, I think that I'm not sure to what extent. I think that stating in your upcoming application that you were awarded in scholarship is really important because it shows how serious you are and how motivated you are and a good student you are. So it's very important to mention it. And yes, I think it's important to mention it that it was interrupted due to the financial crisis happening in Lebanon, so that people can understand that you were awarded it, but due to the sad circumstances, it couldn't continue. I think it is important to be mentioned at some point, maybe on the CV or cover letter, but obviously your application doesn't have to revolve around this. But I think it is important to mention it. What do you think, Bushra?
Yeah, I totally agree, because you need to mention the reason. If you are doing your bachelor's degree and it was interrupted and you're applying for another bachelor's degree, you need to clarify the reason why you are applying for a bachelor's degree. So I totally agree with you, Emma. It should be mentioned. However, it should not be the core of your personal statement. It should be mentioned in one or two sentences describing the situation I was awarded, this specific scholarship, and due to the hardship that Lebanon is going through, the university has suspended most of the scholarship. I don't know if it was only you or other students were also suspended from the scholarship. So you can mention this in few sentences, but try not to look like you are, trying to gain their empathy through focusing too much on this point. Show other aspects that you are passionate about what you're doing. I don't know if you did any other volunteer work or like you did some research and you found yourself very passionate about pursuing this specific field, and you're looking forward for this particular university because they provide this and this and this. It's also good to will research, as Emma mentioned in her slides. Search and search and search. Do your full research and know what the other university is actually providing, and you can use that in your personal statement. But totally, I agree with you, Emma. She can mention it, and probably she needs to mention it. But again, you don't need to revolve all your application around it. So we have Ahmed, who actually shared an insightful comment here. He was telling Haytham that there are multiple tests other than IELTS or TOEFL. You can look the requirement of each college, and many colleges actually can waive this requirement as per decision. If they decided that, okay, they can waive it for you, they would. And he's also advising to look at the DET.
Duolingo English test.
And many colleges actually accepting it, and you can take it from home due to COVID. I've also heard that TOEFL also became like you can take it at home, but of course, if Duolingo is available, it's way cheaper. So I recommend it over over TOEFL, and if you were to take the exam again, it won't be as expensive as TOEFL. With this, we actually reach the end of the questions for today. Emma, thank you very much for the very well-structured presentation, and with all the real examples that you provided, real life examples. I enjoyed the presentation very well, and I'm sure that our audience also did. As a reminder, I would like to remind...
No, please go ahead, Bushra.
Yeah, as a reminder, I just would like to remind our audience to fill out the survey. Your opinion really matters, and it actually provides us with tips on how to design our upcoming webinars. Again, Emma, having you, it was a pleasure. Emma, I know that most of you like interacted with her at specific level. So she knows a lot about mentoring, and she took care of matching matching all of our mentees with great mentors. So on behalf of our audience and our community, I would like to thank you, Emma, for joining us today.
Of course, thank you so much, Bushra, and thank you all for your interest and questions. If you have any questions regarding the content I've been presenting today, I would be very happy to answer any other questions you might have. You have my email, and I might see some of you very soon for the kickoff of our academic mentoring program, or perhaps in the context of other programs or interactions we will be having very soon. So thank you very much, Bushra, and everyone. Thank you.
Of course, thank you all. And also I would like to remind you, we have a webinar this Saturday on how to improve your English language level. It's with Wala Mouma. She was awarded Chevening Scholarship to pursue her studies in the UK. Also, on the 7th of October, we will be having the Said Foundation representative to come and talk more about the Said Foundation Scholarship. So we'd like to see you all in these upcoming webinars. Stay tuned in our Kabila group for more information about registration. For now, wish you a very pleasant rest of your day or evening, and see you in our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.